Oh, hi, everyone. I'd like to introduce you all to our BMF Leading from the Front series. My name is Kosnatis Kaka. I'm a PEC member for Gauteng and a member in good standing. I hope you guys all are. And if you're not, please just don't hesitate to go to the website, renew your membership. BMF membership is of great value to you as a professional, to you as a business person. And as you can see with the caliber of individuals we bring to come inspire and motivate you, it really is worth it. So I just urge everybody to be in good standing, renew their membership so that you can enjoy more of what BMF has to bring in developing strong managerial leadership in South Africa. I think we're gonna start now. We're kicking off at 6, so I'm not gonna waste any time. I'm gonna hand over to Ntuleng, who's gonna introduce our guest for today, Dr. Tirano Mabunda. Over to you, Ntuleng. Oh, just one thing before I go. Please use the Q&A chat instead of the ordinary chat. It's on your far right, just next to record, bottom right, just next to record. Please send your questions there, and then there'll be a time when Ntuleng will go through them with Dr. Mabunda, and we'll take it from there. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Kosnatis, I don't know if maybe you just want to quickly share with everyone around the series as a whole, where today we're kicking off our Leading from the Front series, and this is the first dialogue of a number of dialogues that you're gonna have. So maybe, I don't know if you want to quickly share with members around our thinking around that series that we'll be doing before I kick off this one.
All right, no problem. So essentially, Leading from the Front series is a series that's centered around bringing leaders, Black leaders, who are in the forefront of corporate and business, to inspire and motivate those who are in corporate or those who are starting off in business, and have them tell us their story, let us know how they got to where they are, what it takes to get there, just share their pearls of wisdom and inspire and motivate us, especially now during times of COVID, times of retrenchment and recession. You know, there are a lot of challenges that individuals and corporates are facing, and a good inspirational story is always necessary to keep one going and motivated. Thus, we gave birth to the series Leading from the Front. And this is our first topic that we are engaging in today. This is our inaugural event, the first of many more. So do share with your friends, let them know that we are alive, we're online. It's gonna be a very valuable and informative series. And yeah, today we're starting off with Dr. Tirano Mabunda. So I hope you guys enjoy our session. It's gonna be a very informative session. Have your notepads there so that you can kind of write down the pearls of wisdom Dr. Mabunda surely is gonna share today. And yeah, it's a session to motivate and inspire all of us in corporate, whether corporate or business, to help us get through the storm and help us get through essentially our career hurdles and the obstacles that we have by learning from the best. Because in order for you to grow, you need to learn. And how do you learn is by listening and hearing stories from those who've been through it. And that's how you grow and develop as a leader. So I hope you guys enjoy the session today. And again, I'll reiterate, I hope we are all members in good standing. If you are not, please go and pay your subscriptions, renew your subscription. And yeah, thanks, Ntuleng, over to you.
Thank you so much, Kosnatis. Good evening again, everybody. My name is Ntuleng Mpahlele, and I am currently serving in the BMF as the treasurer of the Johannesburg branch, and I will be facilitating the dialogue today. And with me this evening, I have Dr. Tirano Mabunda. Welcome, sir. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Thank you. I'd like to, before we start off, I'd like to thank you for two things. Number one, I'd like to thank you for the fact that you personally took time where, you poured into yourself, and that which you have poured into yourself, we thank you for taking some time out this evening to pour out into us. And I do hope that each and every member of the audience is just ready to receive that which Dr. Mabunda has prepared for us. So I had a chat with him earlier on, and all I can tell you guys is fasten your seatbelts, buckle up. It is going to be quite a bumpy ride, but I'm certain that it's going to be a great ride, even though bumpy. And whatever he says, I do hope that it, you know, triggers some sort of thinking in each and every one of you, and do not just leave that thought that comes, go on and, you know, I'll say study that thought or pursue that thought or think deeper about whatever is ignited in you as you listen to him speak this evening. So I'll start off with introducing our guest speaker for this evening by just reading this short bio from Dr. Mabunda. So Dr. Tirani Mabunda is an academic, educator, and he's a serial entrepreneur. He's a first-generation growth entrepreneur who believes in building businesses from the ground up. Dr. Mabunda has been involved in the establishment of more than 60 businesses across diverse industries in a business career spanning over 30 years. More than 20 of these businesses are still trading, and Dr. Mabunda continues to be actively involved in their strategic leadership and operational management. Dr. Mabunda is also a professional auctioneer with more than 19 years of bid calling experience. Dr. Mabunda holds more than half a dozen academic and professional qualifications, the highest of which is a PhD conferred by Da Vinci Institute in 2017 with the thesis entitled Entrepreneurship as a Catalyst for Enterprise Development. Ladies and gentlemen, can you please give me a virtual hand clap as we welcome our guest for this evening, Dr. Tirani Mabunda. Welcome,
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ntuleng, for such a glowing introduction. I won't waste a lot of time. I will go into sharing my screen because I prepared slides which I'll take your attendees through. And I will pause the slides once I'm done for the questions.
All right, that's perfect. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. So I, as I said, prepared slides and we'll take you through them. And first and foremost, I'd like to thank the leadership of BMF Gauteng and Nkosinati, the host, for inviting me as one of the speakers to contribute towards your Leading from the Front series. My instructions were very clear and I'll stick to them. I will share my story with your members, highlighting key learnings and sharing principles which can help your members develop as professionals, managers, and entrepreneurs. I'll also share what leadership is within my sector, contributing my own expertise and thought leadership. I'll execute my task as I discussed earlier with Ntuleng in 3 segments. The first one, I would like to contextualize my discussion or my paper within the current South African context or trajectory. And secondly, I'll share some insights from my PhD study because it's relevant, it's a business study. And lastly, I will use my entrepreneurial journey to motivate, as we said already. I won't go through this slide, but I'll just pause and people will look at what happened in terms of the economy contracting by 51. In fact, I'll be unpacking this slide in the next few slides. So I'll just go to it. Your series, the leadership series, is taking place at a time when South Africa's economy is in uncharted territory. According to StatSA, GDP fell by just over 16% between the first and second quarters of 2020, giving an annualized growth rate of negative 51%. I'm sure we have all seen these numbers. And the fact that this contraction even dwarfs the 6.1% that was recorded after the global financial crisis. Historically, we go back as far as 1960 to have something of this magnitude in terms of the biggest fall in GDP. The slump is steeper than the annualized 8.2% of 1982, of that fourth quarter of that year. I'm sure you are all aware, maybe some of you who were not tracking the news today, you have even heard that Stats SA announced that we have a 23.3% unemployment rate in Q2. It's an anomaly. These numbers are distorted because the definition of unemployment by Stats SA is people who are actively looking for work. So no one was looking for work in the past 6 months because of lockdown. So the only indicator that made sense today, which I can put reliance on from Stats SA, is the 42% of what we call expanded unemployment rate. And that begins to give us a sense of what we're dealing with, because we had just over 10 million people in Q1 who were the expanded unemployment rate. Now, 5.6 million people were added to that. So we have close to 16 million people now who are sitting unemployed. 5.6 million of those being the ones who are discouraged from looking for work. My take is that real unemployment tracked the expanded rate. So if the expanded rate increased from 39% by 3% to 42%, I would even venture to say it means that the real unemployment rate today could be around 34%. So we, as I say in the next slide, we are in uncharted territory, and we have a time bomb in terms of unemployment. If 16 million of unemployed people in a country of 60 million, it's quite scary, in fact. We are in a crisis. Now, our glorious movement, the ANC, is clearly doing a terrible job at governance, as demonstrated by the following failures. And I'll just take you quickly through the failures, and I'll pause because I'll conclude by asking some questions to BMF leadership and the general management or whoever is attending today. Our government has failed dismally to manage the country's resources. And I can tell you that this country is not poor. We have resources. And before COVID, we were collecting enough tax to fund the country. The rot caused by largesse and corruption is currently being laid bare in the State Capture Commission, not to mention the callousness of our politicians and administrators to embezzle pandemic funds. Failure to provide quality education, maybe if we were to rank sins, this would be the biggest sin of our government. Because education, as your topic says, in terms of eradicating inequality, education should be the one that breaks the shackles of poverty and give the youth the opportunity not only to earn livelihoods, but to compete with their peers across the 21st century technological world. Youth in other parts of the world are being equipped. Our children, our youth are going to be subservient to these children who are being equipped at the highest level across the world. It's scary that the number of what is called NEET, I'm sure you are familiar with this terminology, which means not in education, not in employment, and not in training. It's more than 50% now in our country. The third failure is to promote entrepreneurship in South Africa, particularly the inability to provide a conducive environment and support for small business to thrive. The welfare state our government is creating is not sustainable, more so because of the floundering economy. I ask you a question. Do you think that we will be able to continue to afford paying 11 billion per month for grants with a diminishing post-COVID tax base? I will park that, and I'm sure we'll pick up on it when we get to the question session. The fourth one is the failure to protect the livelihoods of South Africans by allowing undocumented immigrants to enter the country and compete with them for unskilled job opportunities and other resources, such as access to education, health facilities, and housing. The popularity politics of parties like the EFF propagating that lax immigration, they propagate lax immigration. This is a lame argument. Charity, ladies and gentlemen, should begin at home. We should provide for our own citizens first before we aspire to become Africa's Father Christmas. The reality is that a Schengen-type arrangement cannot exist until there is some parity amongst African states. If you open the borders, people will gravitate towards where they think there's opportunity, and that particular country will not cope with the numbers. The last failure, which I want to position with the leadership, is the failure to make South Africa a safe and secure country for both citizens and tourists. You will know that tourism is one of our biggest income earner or revenue generator. But with the reports we get day in, day out of serious and petty crimes, which are endemic, I don't think we're doing a good job in marketing the country. We are tarnished. Our image is tarnished. That is this. The country is famous for all the wrong things, including lawlessness. Granted, crime also is a reflection of all the other ills, which I've already highlighted. With the rot in South Africa being so glaring, it is intriguing why there has neither been an outcry nor a revolt, particularly by the intelligentsia, who former president nicknamed clever blacks. For this reason, the theme of BMF Gauteng's Leadership Series is appropriate, leading from the front. I'll pause for you to see this image if some of you were not aware of it. This is actual, a highway in KZN was being dug up. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'm generally an optimistic person, but South Africa's current trajectory is worrying. We're actually in a deep crisis. But look around you, there is no emergency. Let me pause and allow each one of you to ponder your own scenarios of South Africa's future projections, assuming no change in the current trajectory. How does BMF Gauteng and its general membership think this movie will end? Let me give you some scenes. Contestation for resources is heating up and will soon bubble over. People are feeling uneasy and unruly. Imagine people digging up a motorway as I showed you. Protests and violence are a regular occurrence causing social instability. Racial tensions and xenophobia or xenophobic incidents are escalating as well. Now, the three questions from the book of leadership and strategy, which is the lessons from the Chinese masters, translated by Thomas Clearly, state the following. I will start with the first quote, open quote. When people have more than enough, they defer. When they have less than enough, they contend. When people defer, courtesy and justice prevail. When they contend, violence and disorder arise. Close quote. The next quote, when there's plenty, desires diminish. When wants are minimal, contention stops. The last quote, open quote, when society is orderly, the common people are upright and cannot be seduced by profit. When society is disorderly, the elite are villainous and cannot be stopped by law. Good people, the consequences of South Africa's current trajectory will be dire if no drastic changes are made. was certainly headed for self-destruction. We are spiraling out of control. Now, Madam Facilitator, allow me to end this segment by presenting or posing some pertinent questions to BMF Gauteng's Leadership Series. What does BMF Gauteng and its general membership consider to be leadership within their respective sectors? And most importantly, what role should we, the clever blacks, play as society goes astray as it is? I'll end by quoting from myself, one of my quotes, which reads, "Many so-called clever blacks are currently disengaged politically in South Africa. They have effectively outsourced their agency to the political branch network patronage system. This apathy will inevitably end in calamity unless clever blacks reclaim their agency. It is fallacious for clever blacks to think that they can mind their own seemingly orderly business within a chaotic society. Voting alone every 5 years will not correct South Africa's ills." I thank you, and I will pause for Madam Facilitator to ask the questions. I think I had one more slide. My apologies. I had one more slide, which is, I'm not propagating that members of BMF must go into politics. However, much as we can all see that President Ramaphosa has the best intentions, the question is, are the circumstances within which his leadership is taking place appropriate? Two quotations again from the Chinese masters reads as follows. The first quotation reads, "When society is orderly, a fool alone cannot disturb it. When society is chaotic, a sage alone cannot bring order." The second one reads, I quote, "When petty people are in high positions, it is not possible to rest easy." Closed quotes. Thank you, Madam Facilitator.
Thank you so much, Dr. Tirano, for that. So we have the Q&A box open there, so please do put in your questions on there, where, you know, this is an opportunity to engage with the doctor around all of the things that he just mentioned. So any question that you have, just put it on there, and then I'll pose it to him. So you talk about leadership. So I think my first question to you is, from a government point of view, as well as from a business point of view, given the current climate that we're in South Africa, what kind of leadership do you think that we need as a country to move us forward? And then secondly, I'll add on top of that to say that whose duty is it actually to affect change in the country, where in the space that I'm in, so I'm in research, and in research we engage a lot with people, and I think I find that sometimes people are, I'll say, maybe overburdening the government to say that I'm not sure how to put it, but, you know, okay, I'll just say, whose duty is it to affect change? Is it just the government's, where, you know, should the only thing that we're looking to is say, okay, government, we need you guys, you know, to start getting a sense of urgency right now and get things going and change things? Yeah.
Can I start with your second question?
Yeah, sure, please.
And can I pose a question to you in return? Whose country is it?
It's all of our country. It's my country, it's the government's country, it's your country, it's the business's country, and yeah.
I would say it's more our country than a government or anyone else of the categories you've mentioned. It's our country. In fact, it's my children's country. It's my grandchildren's country. Now, the heritage which we are celebrating ending tomorrow, that we have to pass on to our future generations. If we're destroying the country, or if we allow the country to be destroyed, What heritage are we going to pass on? What legacy are we going to pass on? So the question you're asking, really, it's, we are all guilty of complicity in what is happening to South Africa Incorporated. So as that quote that I made is mentioning, we have outsourced our agency, all of us, me included. Well, some of us are trying to do things and we fight in the auction industry. There are such atrocities that are being waged against even us as Black people. Obviously, when we say whose country it is, we're including white people as well, who currently seem to be enjoying most of the benefits of this democracy. I'll go to your first question, where you're saying, what kind of leadership should be provided? We are a constitutional democracy, albeit founded on some very disabling, or it's immobilizing in terms of the political system that we have, which is the party system. Maybe it had currency when it was designed, but at this current moment, it's a liability really, because it makes your MP or your councillor or your MPL in the provincial setting, it makes them loyal to the party and not loyal to the constituency and the citizenry. Now, because of that, you find that an MP doesn't care what citizens are saying, because all he has to do is to keep his party happy. And the party will then include their name in the next role. So I think the first leadership that we should provide is to make sure that even if we don't aspire to be politicians ourselves, we should make sure that the political system changes so that we can vote for MPs in our neighborhood. And so that those MPs will know that if they don't do the right thing, come the next round, they are not going to go back. So we have to agitate for change, at least in the political system, other than some of the things I've mentioned, that currently really in politics, it looks like it is the blind leading the wise, because all the intelligentsia have run away from politics. We all have been hounded out of branches. Who is in the branches? Who is in the political parties? Is the unemployed? Is the uneducated mostly? I don't want to generalize, and we sit, we think we'll make business. You make business in what environment? Created by who? If you are in a municipality in some rural area, you need the most intelligent to imagine how they can develop those rural municipalities, how they can do agriculture, how they can process agricultural produce in there. But you don't have. You have some pastors, some teachers who were not even good principals. They're managing municipalities. What do we expect? What outcomes do we expect when we're entrusting our resources to people who have no idea what management is, what leadership is? They're just activists, and their activism gives them the title to become leaders. Thank you.
And then just to like on that, how would you broadly define what is leadership?
Well, leadership, most people would also conflate it with management. Leadership is more your outward looking and visionary looking, societal mobilization. And that's why you'll find that leaders are selfless and all of those. So it's more outward looking, whereas management is more inward looking in terms of organizing, mobilizing the resources that will give the outcomes of leadership their impact or their effect. It's a very broad definition that I'm giving of leadership, and not a textbook one, but one that is more outcome or output based. You will find, funny enough, the best type of leadership today in Asian countries, China particularly. And one of the reasons they are producing some of the best leaders is because they use meritocracy. They don't wait for a person to raise his or her hand and say, choose me, like what we're seeing in America currently. Biden and Trump are parading, saying, choose me, I'm the best. This one is not. China doesn't do that, yet it produces the best leaders by observing what they do, by training them and seeing what they do at the local level, at provincial level. And ultimately, when they go to lead China, they are the best. Some of the people who lead China, even the current president, led the biggest provinces of China. And some of the biggest provinces of China have got budgets that very few countries can compare to.
So it's safe to say that to a large extent, we also kindly to blame for the mess that we in, because we are the ones that chose those that are currently leading us from a government point of view.
Ntuleng, we are not partly to blame. We are to blame for a lot of atrocities. I cringe sometimes when I hear people we call our ministers and our leaders talk. And recently I spoke to someone in government and I said, why aren't you guys doing a reshuffle? And you know what question they posed back to me? We will reshuffle and replace with who? Because they must reshuffle and replace with the people who are in the NEC. Now, go and take a look in the NEC yourself and tell me how many leaders you'll count. And I'm not trying to insult the people who are in the ANC.
So there's a question here where someone's asking, what are the low-hanging fruits that we can do to affect this change from outside political parties and government? Can you just provide examples of the how?
What are the low-hanging fruits that we can capitalize on or leverage to effect the change that we require? You know, when you go deep, you saw that aeroplane that was crashing out of the sky. Yeah, when you are spiraling out of control, you find that sometimes you even forget the basics. We are getting deeper and deeper into crisis by the day in this country. And when you find yourself in this situation, you get into a position where it becomes sort of a chicken and egg, because, you know, maybe I answer it by saying, what is it that we should have done 26 years ago? Now, one of the things we should have done 26 years ago is provide quality education. Because with quality education, you know, you can empower people to be their own agents of change. Now, we haven't done that. And as I've shown you earlier, we have 10 million people who are NEET, not in education, not in employment, not in training. Now, when we got this democratic government, we inherited a whole cohort without skills. Now, these are people who are now in their 50s and 60s, some of them. People who are depending on their sometimes when you go to funerals in villages, and it's a funeral of an 80-year-old, you find there's a 60-year-old who's crying hysterically. And the reason he's crying, maybe not 60, 55, because 60, he'll get his own pension, the 1,800 one. But 55 years old crying like that because he still has a gap of 5 years to get to pension himself. But he doesn't have an income. He depends, or he used to depend on the departed mother who was 80. So we're creating another generation. Currently we have 10 million of them who are in that cohort, who in 10 years, in 20 years, will not be having skills. So one of the things as the BMF we can do is to start paying attention on how we can even empower this neat cohort of 10 million people, with skills. I don't know what skills we'll give them because some of them have dropped out of school at primary. So most of them, about 2 million of them are graduates, by the way, who are not just getting work. That's why they are neat. So we could, even as small businesses, even as managers, we could take people on, not even for salary, but for experiential learning. That for me, from a BMF point of view, would be one program that we need to say, who is in that 10 million need? How can we begin to adopt a youth? Because those are youth between the ages of 18 and 35, I think, if the stats essays definition is correct. Thank you, Ntuleng.
I'm just looking at all of the questions. I think for most people, I think the frustration is around what do we do? Like, what do I do as a citizen? And I think you just mentioned some of the things that we could do kind of individually as a collective, where I think the BMF is exactly just that. It's a platform that you can use to affect change, where someone speaks of how do we regroup as Black professionals, and then from regrouping come up with a strategy that we can implement so that we can prevent our country from falling off a cliff. And I guess then from that, the question is, what are some of these strategies that we can look into? You mentioned quality education now, and on that, I'd like to pose a question to you where I personally find that we will get quality education, but another thing that I'm seeing right now is that, I come in as a Black graduate, where most of the unemployed people right now, it's Black people. Most of the people that are experiencing inequality, it is Black people. So I come into a space and an opportunity is presented to myself and my white counterpart. And because that opportunity is being presented, one can easily say that him and I, or her and I, are being given an equal opportunity. For example, let's say there's a job opportunity there. Because it's there, one can say that constitutes an equal opportunity for the both of us. But then in my view, it's not necessarily an equal opportunity in the sense that we both walking into that opportunity equipped with very different things, where you find that he's far more equipped than I am, or even that opportunity in itself, that person already has a sponsor and they're speaking for them, and then I don't. So I don't necessarily think that it is an equal opportunity when you go a level deeper into that. So how does business then deal with that sort of situation, where I have mentioned to my cousin at some point that if I were to start a company and I'm conducting interviews, I think I'll take a risk on a candidate that did not come out as the best candidate, as long as I see potential in that person, where I think to some extent there's some level of grace that business needs to kind of start showing Black people as they come into interviews here. So how do we deal in that equalizing opportunities that seem equal, but in essence, actually, they're not really equal?
Thank you. I see you couching the question as if the perpetrators of that crime are white. I have news for you. in today's world, the perpetrators of that crime, particularly where I am in business, I have been denied work by Black people in white companies who are in positions of authority. Members of BMF deny us work where from competency, I can rightly say I beat even the white company that they are giving the work. Now, you know, the problem with us, and it goes back to why we also inactive, maybe it's patriotism. You asked me a question and I said, whose country is it? Now, I travel a lot. I used to travel before COVID around the world. If there's one thing that unites citizens in many countries, is their citizenship. Their symbols like flags and all those. Those things mean very little to South Africans. That's why you find you battle to even keep people quiet when there's a soccer game and the national anthem must be sung. So I think we you know, this thing of the Rainbow Nation was given too much currency, and maybe the homework in terms of dealing with racism, dealing with some of the things you are raising, you know, equalizing. Because some of your white counterparts, as we speak today, 26 years after democracy, they are saying you guys have had a long time to catch up. We must now just get on with the business. And they even use that word, let's get on with it. But no one has equalized in the true sense of the word. And they don't care. They're eager to move on because you guys are holding us back. Let's get on with it. You guys have had enough time, 26 years. So, you know, each of the topics and each of the questions your attendees are asking have the potential to open cans and cans and cans of worms. But we, even as this grouping that is here today, at some point need to say, you know what, we have to start somewhere. We can't say it's overwhelming. We'll just throw our hands up and give up. So, yeah, it's tough. You are even talking about your cousin who maybe has an opportunity. I'm telling you about NEET, N-E-E-T. You saw it, not so. 10 million kids who don't even have an opportunity. So I don't want to paint a gloomy picture. I myself, I'm trying in my corner. We all need to do something, but we also need to do things that are joint so that we can have impact. And I like what BMF is doing, but we will need to then develop it into programs. Some of us are available. You could engage us on an ongoing basis to then have programs that would be ongoing where we can help and you know, try to make impact.
So there's a question here. How do we then go about then changing our electoral system to the system that you spoke about?
All right. I think Van Zyl Slabbert, the late Van Zyl Slabbert, did make some submissions to Parliament. He died maybe 10 years ago, I think. I have not paid particular attention to that aspect of work that has been done. But we all know it is the IEC, which is in charge of elections in the country. And I want to think that it would be the custodians with the portfolio committee on elections. I'm sure there is such a committee in Parliament, or the IEC itself as a Chapter 9 institution. We should engage it. How we engage it, it's as BMF, we can have some petition where we highlight why the current system is disadvantaging us as citizens. And we say, you know what, By 2024, when we have the next election, we want it done on a different basis. Because I can bet you part of our problems in terms of the current trajectory, it's mainly because of that system. So that could be a start. IEC, let's target the IEC. And if there's a committee in parliament in charge of electoral system, we also target them. But not only as BMF, let's rally other professional bodies, BBC, everyone. Let's, if there's something that we can do as what I call the intelligentsia, what Zuma calls the clever blacks, maybe that's the one part where we can make our voice heard, so that we can have a system that will govern for the people, not govern for politicians.
I think it's quite clear and evident, and I think it's also coming across from everyone just looking at the chat, that we can all see that we kind of need to find a way to come together, regroup, and then from that kind of think of how we can map a way forward, and then not just think of the way, but actually action things on that as to how we can move forward as a country. And I think with this topic, we can go on for a very long time. So to close it off, can you touch on then how do we then do that which I just spoke of, which is uniting, coming up with the strategy, and then implementing the strategy? How do we do that with self-preservation being a thing or a problem for people? Where someone mentioned the fact, someone mentioned here, the fact that, you know, they want to speak up about things, but then they silenced as a Black person who pays not only government taxes but also Black tax. They have a responsibility to their family and extended family members. So sometimes you want to speak up, but you're scared of speaking up because you might lose your job. And if I lose my job, that means, you know, there's 5 other mouths that become hungrier because I just lost my job. So how do we also deal with that self-preservation?
Yeah, I'll share more of the Chinese master's quotes with you. In fact, I don't know if my PA did find those books. I will try to find them. What is the membership of the BMF now? What in Gauteng? What is the total? I see we have 30 people in attendance today, but what is the total? Maybe Nkosnati can tell us how many people are paid up in good standing, because I'm not finding those books now. I want to find them for each of the paid up members. That will be my contribution to the topic of leadership, because yes, I'm also a coward. Count me as a coward. At the board meeting one day, I say to the Tirano Group Holdings, guys, this is nonsense. Something had happened in government. And I said, I'm going to speak out. They say, but sir, are you aware that we employ 2,000 people? And if you, as the face of this company, make those entrances that you made in this boardroom, some of your companies which rely on government business may not get government business. And they said, maybe you should find other ways to still achieve the same objective without going public. Now, that's my answer to the question. Maybe we need to find other ways that we can make an impact without sticking out. You know, the Scandinavian countries have this thing that you should never stick out. If you are a tall tree, the wind will drop you. Or if you are tall, something will chop you down. So you have to be, they promote an egalitarian society in a sense. I've just seen a pop-up here that you have 350 members in good standing, but there's only 30 in attendance. I find that very hard in Nkosinati to believe, because where are your members if they are not active? I think, please give me a list of the people who are attending today in Tuleng, and we'll source that book, and if we find it, I will only give to the people who are in attendance at this webinar.
Thank you so much. That would be great. Where even now as we speak, I think there's work that I also need to go do individually on myself before I can proper contribute to the dialogue as to, you know, how we can move the country forward. I think the book would be a good resource for that.
Thank you very much.
So yeah, with that, I think we'll wrap up the first part of our dialogue and move on to the second part. So I'll allow you to share your slides on that and just run us through your info on that one.
Thank you. I have a few slides that I've prepared, being insights from my PhD study. As you said in your intro, it was conferred in 2017. Correction, it's not an entrepreneurship, it's enterpriseneurship as a catalyst for enterprise development. Now, the study sought to, in terms of its purpose, to find alternative policies necessary to stimulate enterprise development, not only during, and I think we need to underline that not only during the difficult birthing stage, but also with the management skills the business is required to overcome failure and promote their sustainability during the transition from small to medium and from medium to large. You'll see later as I unpack this that what government programs currently do is to just give startup funding and they don't care what happens to you after that. Now, the main finding of this study was the lack of impact in sustainable enterprise development in our country may be failing due to current SME policies, which are focused largely on stimulating behavioral entrepreneurship, with a bias towards supporting non-entrepreneurial startups established by necessity entrepreneurs, which are prone to high failure. And I'm emphasizing those. Our country spends currently between 2 and 3 billion funding non-entrepreneurial startups. And that can't be productive at all, and I will demonstrate it later. Even if they succeed, necessity startups are tantamount to self-employment with minimal, if any, job creation. A necessity business will never employ more than 5 people. It will employ 1 or 2, the owner and maybe 1 other or 3, and it ends there because there's no snowballing effect with a necessity business. This approach is floundering and is failing dismally because of 2 main challenges. The first challenge being the country has low entrepreneurial activity. And you don't have to go far to find why our country has low entrepreneurial activity. It's because the education system sucks. It doesn't teach creativity. How do you expect people to be creative when they are not being taught to be creative? That's why people come from Mozambique and they get a shack in Alexandra, they move into Wynberg, and they get a job the following day, and they go back to Alexandra, they say, I've got a job. And the guy who has been going to Wynberg every day looking for a job says, you took my job. But when that guy got to the factory in Wynberg, he was asked a question, what can you do? And the guy said, I can tile. And they said, oh, here are tiles, here's cement, tile a square meter, let's see. And he tiled impeccably. But the guy who was going there, who is South African, when they said, what can you do? He said, everything. And you and I know, when someone says they can do everything, they can do nothing. But they didn't cause it unto themselves, but it's the nature of the beast. So South Africa's rate of entrepreneurship is so low, a mere quarter of what other African countries have. Only 7% of the adult population in South Africa are engaged in some entrepreneurial activity, and a mere 2.7% already own an established business. According to GEM, only 10% of South Africans of working age intend starting their own business in the next 3 years, compared to 40% in other African countries. We're not even comparing to Europe. Now, as I said earlier, this problem comes from the last point in that slide. All these statistics are a reflection of a poor quality, unimaginative education system, which is segregated racially, provincially, regionally, and locally, with differences in educational resources and educational attainment, thus widening inequality, which is the topic that BMF is addressing. South Africa has an education system for rural citizens, one for people in the townships, one for people in the suburbs called former Model C, one for the middle class, and one for the super rich. In fact, differentiation for our education system is not only within the public sector, but also in the private sector. So we have private schools, and we also have private schools, if you know what I mean. Now, the second challenge is a high startup failure rate. Now, this comes from the first one, where people are forming necessity businesses. And by the way, the definition of a necessity business is the business that a person is forming because they have no other option at earning a living. And by definition, those people actually do not want to form a business. They want work. So if real businessmen were to step up and they were to be supported to form businesses, those people would leave their necessity businesses and go work for real business people. But government is not getting it. Even after I presented this thesis, they don't get it. That's what they should support. We'll see the findings just now. Most South African SMMEs do not survive beyond 3.5 years. And out of the 7 businesses that are started in South Africa, 5 are bound to fail within 5 years. A further 80% which survive the first 5 years fail by their 10th anniversary. This is a chilling statistic. It is like the sign I have seen at many bars which reads,
I don't know if
called the missing middle.
We lost you there for a bit.
You lost me from which point, Tuleng?
I think you can start from, this is a chilling statistic.
Oh, it is a chilling statistic indeed. And the statistic is that 5 out of 7 businesses fail within 5 years. And 80% of the survivors also fail by the 10th anniversary. And I said this is like a sign I've seen in many bars which reads, I quote, "Trespassers will be shot and survivors will be shot again." Close quote. So I was just saying that the challenges of enterprise development in our country have resulted in what I call the missing middle, whereby there is an inordinate concentration of SMMEs. So there's a lot of SMMEs, but mostly in the informal sector. And there is a very few medium-sized businesses and a handful of large businesses. And I'm sure you know that large businesses are not in the business of creating jobs now. They are shedding them. So these are serious implications for job creation, for an expanded tax base. And by the way, if there are some of you who work for SARS, SARS is killing small businesses. They suffocate them when they should be helping them to grow. SARS should be giving businesses money to grow so that they can become medium and pay tax. And this ultimately would reduce inequality. I'll pause on this one to ask you a question, because I'll now be going to some of the outcomes of the study. Who is the entrepreneur here? Ray Kroc or a McDonald's franchisee? Obviously, it's virtual. I don't expect you to answer this. I'm sure one day when there is no COVID, we'll have the opportunity of physical meetings. I also want to pause and you see this one. There's a street barber on the left and there's a legendary barber on the right on a TLB. Now, it will be expanded on by the findings, other findings of the study. The study found also that not all business owners are entrepreneurs, and not all businesses are involved in entrepreneurial business activity. If our government were to get this point, they would know that you don't have a one-size-fits-all approach when you're funding businesses. For those that are entrepreneurial, who want to grow their businesses, you have to have a different approach. Government, as I said, spends between 2 and 3 billion per year, and yet there is no impact despite this. My research also found that there's 14 government policies, there's 21 government institutions whose mandate is to support business across all spheres. There is DTI, there is, most departments, agriculture, tourism, everyone is delving in this space with no impact, by the way. Apart from being risky ventures and prone to high failure, necessity startups are tantamount to self-employment. I've made this point before. There is a need to mitigate the risk of failure by introducing alternative policies, which is where this study came in. And the study says, identify
It seems like we have lost the doctor there for a bit. Let's just give him a second to see if he will reconnect. I do hope that the conversation has been stimulating so far, but based on the questions that we've been getting, I can see. Yeah, I think
for some reason.
Oh yeah, that's buffering. Oh, he's back now.
Tirano, you could also just please switch off your video to just help the doctor with the bandwidth.
Oh, okay, when I'm not speaking. All right, well, I'll do that.
Okay. All right. Eunice, minimize that. All right, so I don't know where you lost me because it looks like we're having this challenge. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you. I
yeah,
think
but
you
fortunately, the slide up all along.
Yes, the slide was up.
No, I hope that most people read already. So it's okay. I will just highlight some few things and we continue. Now, why support existing high impact businesses? It's because they've already gone some way towards the development of their businesses, and sometimes without even help. And they've achieved success, but mainly because the chances of failure, it's not because of that, but it's because of chances of failure are mitigated. High impact ventures offer opportunities for limitless snowballing growth. What happened here? Now, the recommendations of the study was a model called the Entrepreneurship model. I will just quickly go into it. There is the model. On the left, you have a high impact entrepreneur. This was, by the way, what I added into the body of knowledge.
Doc, your slides are frozen, so we're still on the other findings of the study slide. There we go.
Eunice,
all right, thanks.
What happened to my slides? Is it moving now?
Yeah, now it's fine, thanks.
Okay, I did say the recommendations were an ecosystem, entrepreneurship ecosystem, which I'm now in. Am I on the right slide? All right, to the left, you have a high impact entrepreneur. It could be an opportunity venture, original concepts. It could be sustainable. It's sustainable. you start from maybe 5 years, but if you have a 10-year business, for instance, one of my businesses in my company is 20 years old, plus 94 research, or Tirano Auctioneers or Ishaka Funerals is 14 years old. Businesses like those, which we have been running on our own without much support. Now, the key to this is to standardize and document the business. The reason there are no Maponyas, and Maponya's supermarket was not replicated or franchised, is because it's not documented. I mean, government could spend money document Black people's businesses using some of the BMF's professionals who are specialized in that field of documenting businesses, so that you end up having SOPs, systems, processes, and standard operating procedures. Why I showed you McDonald's, the reason McDonald's is successful is because it's documented. Now, replication, once you have documented a business, you can replicate it. Replication can happen by franchising, by opening more branches of the same white label, anyway. And when you're replicating, you're giving other people who come from the top, who we call entrepreneurship agents, you're giving them opportunities to participate in the replicated businesses. You're growing the economy. And the bias should be on Black business, because this is a Black government and it's a Black country. The outputs of this are that, for instance, if we're going to replicate Maponyas, we will not allow him to buy from white farmers. We must create new supply chains. He has to buy from farmers that are also looking like him. And we can't apologize for that. The entrepreneurship containing system includes, it's at the center, and just in the immediate environment, you have beneficiation, you have manufacturing, you have extraction or production. So that's where you'll get your fruit and veggies and you beneficiate them. Then you have new supply chains. Obviously, government should be providing the professional support, the financial support, the non-financial support like your CEDA and all those, and business management support. When you have small businesses, why can't government appoint an accountant in Randburg and say all small businesses in this area can go to that accountant so that they can have their books done? HR and all of that, because that's why small business fail. They don't know how to run the businesses. Sometimes they have good concepts. Now, at the top, the contextual environment. Now, South Africa has serious challenges with regard to transformation of the economy and the inclusion of Black entrepreneurs in the mainstream of the economy. South Africa is a country of two economies. Mbeki coined this. He says there's the first economy and the second economy. And I also economy, which is the Chisanyamas and the informal ones. On the one hand, you have poor people who don't have proper business opportunities and have to settle for spaza shops. Of course, what can they do? They can't dream up chains. Even if they dream up chains, they won't have funding for it. And on the other side, you have white business. I was on Power FM just before COVID, and they announced the 200 billion money that government will give in terms of guarantees. I told Aldrin Sampier, Aldrin, this money will benefit white business. And indeed, only 10 billion was spent, and it was spent on white business. No Black business will benefit from it because they don't even have books. Small business battle to transition from small to medium, from medium to large, and I've already outlined this point earlier. Now, according to the research, the reason there is this failure is largely because government, as I said earlier, will just fund a business to start up, and then they leave it there. There's too much emphasis on providing finance to new businesses compared to the attention given to solving sustainability challenges. And too often, the support offered to start begins and ends with the provision of business plans and finance. Now, the conclusion of the study are that new entrants fail in business, not because their ventures are not viable, but because they do not understand the complexity of navigating a business from inception through growth and expansion. This could explain the high rate of business failure, particularly amongst Blacks. And because you need to add to this the education system, as I've already outlined, and I won't bore you with that now. And this could also explain why we have the lowest SMME survival rate in the world. And this could also explain why our people form necessity businesses. Now, as I want to conclude on this particular segment, I would also like to say that we're not stupid for only dreaming spaza shops. I have a quote that is ascribed to me, and I will quote myself, open quote: "The DNA of a business growth lies in its conceptualization. If you conceive a small business or a spaza shop, it will certainly grow into a mature small business. Small businesses or spaza shops don't grow into big business by some miracle. Big businesses are conceived as big businesses from the outset, even though they too have to start small before they grow into their blueprint." You know, Pick n Pay started with 2 supermarkets. They have 2,000 today. But when they started with 2, they had 2,000 inside. Very few Black people will dream that dream. My favorite musician, Bob Marley, says, "The biggest man you'll ever see was once just a baby." I'm done with this segment, Madam, and the questions I have for the attendees in this segment are: 1, what can BMF Gauteng and its general membership do to change the current system of governance where an incompetent assumption is made that activism equates to governance and management? I think we've covered most of it in the previous segment, but I will tell you why I'm asking these questions. And the second one is, what can BMF Gauteng and its general membership do to influence the adoption of a system of meritocracy to select people into leadership? And I could even go as far as saying management positions. Now, why I'm asking these questions, it's, you know, the problem we're having with all of the things I've mentioned in this segment, it's because sometimes you even find people at IDC who are supposed to give money to small business, but they don't understand the real needs and requirements of small business. And you find ministers who are supposed, in fact, this thing of ministers is the most intriguing thing I've ever encountered. You know, you find a councillor gets appointed as the MMC for economics today. Tomorrow, he's an expert on economics. Tomorrow, a minister the same. Then he gets reshuffled and is taken to agriculture. The following day, he stands up and he's going like, in agriculture, this is what we do. Come on, guys. How can we as BMF allow a system where people who know nothing about what they are managing just because they're activists? Thank you, ma'am. I'm done with this segment.
Thank you so much. I think even from the previous things, one thing that I did note down personally was the fact that there is a huge difference between someone that's an activist and someone that's in a leadership position. So I'll just go to the questions that people have here, where someone is asking, someone is saying, do you think the manner in which government funding is distributed has an impact on why there is low entrepreneurial activity? For example, if a kid from Alex with absolutely no political ties has an idea to bring about a solution to, for example, ESCOM, would our government fund such an idea? And then this person doubts it. They think that besides there being unequal education, entrepreneurship is not encouraged by our government. It appears dependence on government tenders, particularly by Black individuals, is more encouraged versus entrepreneurs who can create industries. I think we've lost Dr. Tirano there. Please do keep the questions coming. I see someone here saying great inputs, so refreshing. It is quite refreshing, and I do hope that you guys will go and take time and think about it. And I think it would be great to ask him if he can share the slides with us so that we can go back and reflect as well on some of the questions that he has posed to us as the BMF, so that we can do exactly just that, you know, re-galvanize and look at the questions that he has posed and see if, I think we are very much capable of coming up with solutions that could possibly work for, not only for us, we are the country. Yeah, we are the country. So while we wait for the doc to come back, I'll let you guys know also that the webinar is also recorded if you want to go back and listen to it after the segment. We will share a link to the recording of the webinar as well. It will also be on our YouTube, on the BMF YouTube channel. You can also catch it there on the YouTube channel. And I'm personally looking forward to receiving the book that the doctor is going to share. And I think it would actually be great if we, once we receive the book, allow each person that's in attendance some time to read the book. And then after we've read the book, perhaps have some form of discussion panel where we all come back in and just discuss some of the insights that we've gotten from the book, what we've individually gleaned from the book, and then take what we've individually gotten from the book, bring it together, and yeah, just see how we can lead the country forward. Gosnaita, are we winning on getting the doctor back?
Antuleng, I'm just trying to get in touch. I think he's got some network issues, but I think we can just, yeah, while we're trying to get that done, I think all the members who are here, I'd like to ask you all to maybe send your name and your contact number onto an email address. I'll put Ntantla's email address, who's our provincial coordinator, so that you could get your book. But as you heard the doc, he said members in good standing. So please be in good standing. But I'm gonna put Ntantla's email address on the chat for everybody to see, so that you could just all email. Please don't send to a friend who didn't attend. Just email your email address and number only, so we can get in touch with you and make sure you get the book.
So Tande asked if we can make contact with the doctor outside of this for this guidance. I think maybe we can try have another segment with him where we can all re-engage with him after we've kind of digested what he has said, because yeah, I think it's quite a lot. So it seems like you want an encore. We can, Gosnati, I think we can try organize an encore. Gosnati? Yeah, I'm sure we can organize an encore, especially also after we have gone through the book that he suggested that we read through. Gosnati, can you facilitate for a bit? Eunice is calling me.
All right. So I think we can definitely do that. We'll organize a session for, I think it's better for us to organize a one-on-one session, as the doctor stated, post the lockdown, maybe early next year, once we are over this COVID bridge, where to have a session with him where you can have an opportunity to engage with Dr. Mabunda and his team one-on-one. So we could kind of sum up and feedback what we've learned from the book and engage further from the learnings that we've kind of communicated or received on this platform. And I just like to apologize again for the technical glitch. We still cannot seem to find.
So the doctor is back on, but wait, we can't see him on here.
So apologies for that. I think while we are still trying to just facilitate the connection, let's continue the conversation on our chats. I'll also put Nhlanhla's email address on the chat so that you can email your contact details so we can get hold of you, send you the book.
All right, great. So there's a question here by Mandisa where she was asking that, do you think the manner in which government funding is distributed has an impact on why there is low entrepreneurial activity? For example, if a kid from Alex with absolutely no political ties has an idea to bring about a solution to, for example, a company like Eskom, would our government fund such an idea? And Mandisa doubts that. She thinks that besides there being unequal education, entrepreneurship is not encouraged by our government. It appears that dependence on government tenders by Black individuals is more encouraged versus entrepreneurs who can create industries.
Yeah, Mandisa is asking a minefield. So government announces a 9 billion jobs fund, and it's housed at the what is that one at the one in Midrand, man, the bank in Midrand for government, Development Bank of South Africa. Now, our funeral business was about 8 years old then, and we thought we had a brilliant idea to replicate and be the whole country and take on your likes of AVBOP and even manufacture and all those. So we do this business plan that was promising 8,000 jobs in the one province where we are in Limpopo, and it was going to tens of thousands of jobs the whole country. But to cut a long story short, it was an electronic submission. They confirmed they received it, but we were not even called to present our business plan. But I then learned that Jew boys were getting, one of them got a 300 million allocation to do a trailer, bagger, something, which is, and it died by now. So I then investigated to find out who is running the jobs fund. I then found that it's run by white people as usual, and they are just giving the money to other white people. But the jobs fund is a government thing. The DBSA is run by Black. And so I think even as BMF, even as BBC, there's a lot more we need to do to deal with this patronage that happens in our government, because it kills good ideas. And Mandisa is right. A kid in Alex, for starters, she won't have the education to come up with brilliant ideas. Already, she's on a back foot. But even if she's a genius and gets a good idea, she knows no one. And our system relies on knowing someone. We can't have a system that relies on knowing people. We should have a system that knows ideas.
Seems like the network is not cooperating this evening, but yeah, let's just be patient. and see if I'll quickly reconnect again. So I'll share some of the questions that all the other attendees have asked, where, you know, I think we can also think amongst ourselves as well, and in terms of addressing these questions, where I think, yeah, we're also capable as well of putting some thought into it, where someone asks a question here, which is a question that also kind of plagues me, and we will also try pose a question to the doctor, where they're asking, how do we encourage South Africans to buy South African products? They have observed that South Africans prefer to buy from the likes of Gucci or Louis Vuitton versus a Kosi Nkosi, and to bring it to smaller, cheaper goods, they buy Sunlight, which is a Unilever product, versus the guy down the road making detergent. So why do we have that culture as a country? There, the doctor is back. So you guys, yeah, as attendees, you can also speak. You can request to speak by raising your hand for your engagement. So with this question also about, you know, creating a culture where we support South African products, I think also I'd add on top of that, where I personally buy, if it was me, I personally buy Sunlight because I think Sunlight is of good quality, you know, versus making that detergent down the road. I think also another thing that at times entrepreneurs, local entrepreneurs, are sometimes guilty of is also that element of not producing a product that is of quality, that I will be willing to, you know, change from using Sunlight to using that product. Where for me, if you give me something that is of quality, I'll definitely go and buy your product. And just based on what the doctor has been talking about, I think I'm gathering that as Black entrepreneurs, we also kind of need to go back to the basics of starting and establishing a business. So basics like, you know, how do you run your small business, laying a proper foundation for yourself, for your business. I think that's also something that will ensure survival for our businesses.
Yeah, and I think, just to add to what you're saying, I mean, leadership is, you are born a leader, but you can learn to be a great leader, you know. From us, where we are, some of us who are in corporate, let's use that as let's use the experience that we get from corporate, the experiences that we get and the exposure that we get to equip us to be thorough entrepreneurs that are able to run successful businesses. You know, let's not just sit and be employees in our own little cocoon and not learn how to run businesses, because the biggest issue that is also within the South African context of entrepreneurs is failure of businesses. And as Dr. Mabunda alluded to, there's a high level of failure because people are not experienced in running big businesses. And we also run the same type of businesses. You see your friend and you do the same type of business, primarily because of your exposure, finance, but also your lack of experience in terms of managing a certain type of business, managing specific type of tasks. So let's use the experience that we get from our corporate work and from your running your business, from studying, to learn to look for opportunities. Because I mean, when you run a business, the business is simple. It's defined in a very simple manner, where a business is spotting an opportunity and filling it. So we need to stop opening businesses that are overexposed, that people are already doing, because then there's no opportunity. As you are in research, as you know, market research is something that's really integral to starting a business and keeping it relevant. So we need to start businesses in sectors where there's a need. And when there's a need, we come and fulfill that need. Not when there's a want, because a want is a luxury, need is compulsory. And that'll help us grow multinational businesses instead of us doing the same old luxurious businesses that don't cater for a need, but a secondary want, you know. So I think these are good lessons that I'm taking in from what Dr. Mabunda has said, especially in his thesis. And also, I like what you're saying about replicating businesses. That really makes a lot of sense. We need to document businesses. Document, example, your Richard Maponya and all the tycoons of yesteryear who are there, you know. Mr. Shabalala from Soweto, all the landowners who are there, they had business models that really worked, but no one documented them. So now there's a gap in the market and we can't replicate and grow. Yet your Ackerman documented it, he's replicating it all over the country. So I think those are great insights, Dr. Mabunda, from your thesis. Yeah, I'm really enjoying this discussion. I see you're back now, sir. Are you ready to?
Yeah, no, I don't know. There's someone who is bewitching us, man.
Indeed.
There's a white man who has learned Ublui. What's bewitched, man?
Hey, he doesn't want us to progress, but we move on.
Okay.
All right.
No, sorry, what was that question? So I was still explaining to Leng about how, you know, I know of people in SOEs, white people in procurement, who have refused promotions because they are gatekeeping for their brethren. And our own black managers who run those entities allow it to happen. So we have our work cut out, even as BMF, to deal with these problems. So Mandisa is right. Mandisa is right. The kid from Alex will find it very difficult, but the kid from Alex should be finding promotion from people like Mabunda. But at the moment, she can't find promotion from people like Mabunda because Mabunda is also struggling. He's being blocked.
Do you also think like the financial services sector could be doing more in that regard, or also maybe another perspective that you could look at it is, should we find a way also to equip the entrepreneurs such that they are able to present their ideas in a way that they will get that support, or it's not even about that anymore? It's a systematic.
It's not about the quality or the format of the support, but you, Mandisa, you will know when we go into the last segment of the address, you will see that a true entrepreneur with their perseverance and their persistence will succeed in spite or despite the blockages that are in the system. But it shouldn't be this hard, you know? It shouldn't be this hard. That's what we're talking about. But true entrepreneurs will succeed despite. I mean, we labored and we fought in the auction space, which is predominantly white. We're running a small business now, which services the likes of ABSA and other banks are still resisting, but it's a matter of time before they also come and in fact, they'll come themselves to knock at our door and say, we see you doing work here, good work. Can you also do business with us? But it shouldn't be this hard. And part of it should be that us who have climbed the ladder should help the others. That's how it should work. And the problem that we also need to deal with is coming out of this series, you need to have certain programs that you adopt, which going forward on the same basis maybe where you also get some of us as people who can be patrons, can come and champion it. We need to help each other. As Black people, we don't have communities of professionals, of business people where we help each other. We still have this thing where it must be, you know, that person is the only one in that space. That one, business doesn't work that way. other races are progressing because they collaborate. And I think collaboration should be one thing that we teach ourselves, because it doesn't look like it comes naturally. Maybe it's because Sangomas and Abaloi don't collaborate, they go do it alone. I don't know. Maybe it's not in our culture.
Yeah, so there's a scripture in the Bible that I'd like to quote that actually says that a kingdom that's divided against itself, it cannot prosper. And I think we need to bring back that unity again as Black people amongst ourselves in order for us to be able to progress and move forward.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So now let's say that when you had approached the IDC, they had given you funding for your funeral. I think you said funeral parlor, right? And then now you coming your funeral parlor, you obviously competing with the likes of clientele. So the question is here, how do we then encourage South Africans to support your funeral parlor instead of clientele, where the question here is that someone has observed that South Africans prefer to buy from the likes of Gucci or Louis Vuitton versus Kosi Nkosi, and to bring it to smaller, cheaper goods, they buy a bar of Sunlight soap versus going down the road making to buy it from a guy that makes detergents themselves.
Yeah, no, but that part is education to the consumer. Now, education to the consumer, well, when you find that the consumer is uneducated, and which is where even some of the political parties that form themselves, they fail to make headway, because some people are even saying the ANC is keeping our general populace deliberately ignorant so that they can use them as voting fodder. I don't want to believe that. Maybe there's just no imagination in terms of the education system. But the problem is, you know, business, even with equality and equalization, business in its nature is about fighting for your space. And I don't mind fighting for my space as long as the opportunities are equal, as long as the playing fields are leveled. I don't mind fighting for my space. But the problem is where you find that from the start, there are blockages, and which is where, as BMF and other professional organizations, we should be vocal about that and make sure that the powers that be, you know, are aware that they can't continue doing that. So let's say we were given the allocation, we would have been able to then compete on an equal footing with your clientele and all those. We would have the budget to go on TV. We would have, and as a result, you find that you gain traction, and it's about your reputation in the market and the brand awareness and all those. So it comes with time. Your AVBOBs are more than 100 years old, hence they are behemoths, and they have, you know, more than, I don't know, maybe 1 million members who pay premiums, and they turn over 4 billion a year. And so, but they grew over the years, and they started small as well.
Yeah, I think we also have to acknowledge as well, apart from, you know, all of these other political things, there are also things like principles in business that we need to apply. There's also process as well within that, where we can't just want things to happen very quickly, of which you just answered a question that someone has that was asking why South African why small businesses aren't able to compete, and I think you did touch on that. We are running out of time. I think there's a lot that we can see that you have a very deep well of wisdom, and we are running out of time. So I think we'll use the last 10 minutes for the last part, where you'll just share your journey with everyone. And I'm sure there's a lot that we can also glean from that. And we'll try save some of the questions, and then maybe when we re-engage again, we'll just walk through them.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay. All right. I hope you can still hear me. this is now there's very little questions here, but questions will come maybe from your audience. So who is Tirano Mabunda? Where does he come from? What defines him? The answer is Tirano Mabunda is a very humble man coming from humble beginnings. That's where Tirano comes from. No, these were not my hearts. In Nkobane village at Malamlele in Limpopo, born in 1963. So I'm a bit of a dinosaur now, but similar structures where one comes from. And you would say that is the school where I come from, because that's where one comes from, really. Now, lesson number one, circumstances do not define you. How you deal with them does. And it's not mine, it's Ed Millionaire mentor that. Now, Bruce Lee also said, I quote, "To hell with circumstances, I create opportunities." And theme two is work and discovery, which is where you were saying, Tuleng, that I have a well of knowledge, a wealth of knowledge. It comes from work and discovery, which is what education should be about. It shouldn't be a linear process, education. It should be about kids discovering the world and coming up with new ideas. If we're going to tell people that read this book and all the knowledge is in this book, when are they going to write their own books? Because they need to discover things which are not even in books. But anyway, the real tragedy of life is not that each one of us doesn't have enough strength or talent. It's that we fail to use the ones we have. That's Marcus Buckingham, who has done phenomenal work in this space of discovering your talents. Talent plus knowledge plus skills equals to your strength. And I would encourage everyone listening that get the Strength Finder. You find it at your exclusive books. Buy that Strength Finder. It's called Strength Finder by Clifton. I think it's Clifton. And you will find a test in there where you'll write and you'll find your own themes of strength. I will share mine later as we go in the presentation, which are my own unique talents which God gave me. And I found the day I discovered this is who I am, I'm enjoying even what I do. Now, regretfully, school does very little in the way of a focused hunt for our areas of greatest potential. Instead, school is preoccupied with transferring knowledge and skills, but it doesn't unearth your talent. Most people, unfortunately, spend a lifetime without discovering their natural talents because of this problem. Now, the question is, are entrepreneurs born or made? And the answer, indirectly, it's opportunities missed by most because it is dressed in overalls and looks like work. That's Thomas Edison, by the way. And luck is when opportunity meets preparation. Now, talent is important still, because if you don't have the talent God-given of perseverance and persistence and of ideation and all of those, you will not make it as an entrepreneur. So it's very important to know that you have to have the talent in anything that you do anyway. Ray Kroc says, I've always believed that each man makes his own happiness and is responsible for his own problems. It follows, therefore, that a man, which includes a woman, by the way, must take advantage of any opportunities that come along. And I've always done that. As long as you are green, you are growing. As soon as you are ripe, you start to rot. By the way, Ray Kroc started replicating McDonald's, which was not his business. He started replicating it at the age of 55. Now, growing up, I've always been idealistic and creative and strategic, but I didn't know that these were my talents. But later on, I discovered in the book, Discover Your Strength. Some of my exploits include the following. I started work as a clerk at the tender age of 17 in 81, earning a meager salary of 191 rands per month. You're reading correctly. It's 191 rands per month. Now, I had started work because I passed well at school, but my mother told me I couldn't go to university because I had overtaken 3 of my siblings, and she didn't have money to take me to varsity. So my father had died when I was only 3. Now, I bought a 3-bedroom house, which you can see there, for 7,500. At 18, I had to get a co-guarantor to sign with me. This was in 1982. The installment was 82 Rand from that 191. Now, I started tapping into my idealist and creative traits when I started designing extensions of my house. So I would buy magazines, look at the houses, and just design and, wishing to own this beautiful house. That's long before I even had funding for the project. But fortunately, I did a diploma which government was sponsoring from 82, 84, I passed it. They increased my salary to 480 Rand in 85. Now I had money. I increased my bond of 7,500 to 12,500, but I increased it by 12,500. And that's the extension. If you look at the previous one, you can see that house. If you look at the next one, you see the old house. I don't know if you can see it. That's the old house, but you can see the old house in the new house. All I've done is close the door. There's a door here, but there's no door in the house there. So I extended that part, the phase 1. Then I immediately enrolled part-time for a degree. And when I passed it in 87, they gave me 800 Rand as my salary now, because now I'm a graduate. So I took another bond, 17,500, and finished the part where there's a garage, phase 2. This is in Guyana, by the way. Now, this entrepreneurial streak that I have came from a long time ago. I used to hire both a projector and the film, The Ring, and would go to schools using taxis at night, would block a classroom and show movies. I'm not sure if I even ever made money out of this exercise. But the real break now comes when I resigned from clerical in 1987 after passing the degree and went to teaching in 88. Now, the pension fund for teachers and clerks was not the same then. They were different. So I was given 8,000 as my pension. I took the 8,000, bought a Corolla. I was cool. I tell you, I had lots of girlfriends then because I had a car all of a sudden, a boy from the village. But I bumped into a friend of mine who had a 16-seater taxi. I then asked him how he bought his taxi. He says he paid 8,000 deposit. And I then said, if I gave you 8,000, would you also buy one for me? And he says, yes. So I sold my car for 8,500 and kept the 500 and gave him the 8,000, and I got a taxi. Within like 3 years, by 1993, I had 3 taxis from that first one. And now the big break came in 93. I ventured into formal business. I'm told I was the first Black person in 93 to become a Nando's franchisee. Little did I know that my house extension hobby would launch me into business. I had a bond now from 7,500 and the 12.5 and the 17 of 38,000. But when they valued my house, it was 220 or 30 something in 1993. So I took 198 second bond for my house, and I sold the taxis and raised about 380,000 of the 500,000 that was required for the franchise. And I went to the friend who had introduced me into taxis. He gave me the balance to make 500 and became my partner. The rest, as the saying goes, is history. Now, As for studies, I have never been to school full-time. I studied part-time until the doctorate level. Did MBAs with Stellenbosch part-time all along and all that, but I never graduated the MBA. I just graduated the honors in business administration. Now, lesson number 2 is what keeps you up? What is your passion? There's a guy, Charles Bukowski. He says, find what you love and let it kill you. Well, not literally, but he means if you're doing the things you love, you'll never get tired. Often people describe themselves in terms of their qualifications and experience. You ask someone, what are your talents? They'll tell you, I have a BCom. BCom is not your talent. As I said earlier, get the strength finder. Find your true talent. What makes you tick? Find your dominant talents and perfect them. Yearnings and likings will tell you about your talents. You know, you remember when you were at school and they said choir time and you would cringe. You would just feel like this time maybe should just pass. And someone is feeling like it could be Thursday every time because there's choir. Those are yearnings. Now, so what were your yearnings as a young person? If you go back and you pay attention, you'll find what your talents are. Success and fulfillment comes from playing to your strength. Now, what are the overall entrepreneurial orientation? If you are going to be an entrepreneur, you need to have a learning orientation. You must find learning easy. You need to have an achievement orientation. You need to have an autonomy orientation. You must be self-driven. You need to have a competitive orientation. You must have an innovation orientation. You must have a risk-taking orientation. You must have a personal initiative orientation. Now, these are my strengths, which I found in the Strengths Finder. Ideation, which is, I am, in Xitsonga, my language, they call me Ngwamloro, the dreamer. I'm strategic. That's my second strongest talent. I'm an achiever, which is hardworking. Relator means I don't have friends. I keep very few, but I cultivate the relationships very deep. Self-assurance means confidence. But by the way, I'm an introvert. But if you put me in my work, like as an auctioneer, I'm the best bid caller in the country, one of the best. So if you find me at my game, the introversy doesn't work. Now, as I said in my bio, I started more than 60 companies from 1988 to date. More than 20 of those still exist, and they are under Tirano Group Holdings. COVID-19 has wreaked havoc in the group and has claimed some scalps. So we will take stock and see what survived and what didn't. But if you look there, that is the, those are the areas or the sectors where we have companies. In auctioneering, in aviation, in construction, in education and training, in funeral services, in resources and energy. That one is dormant. In transport and logistics, and in technologies, that one is also dormant. For no, active telematics is active. And in investments, we have a few things under investments. Now, I've selected a few that I would like to share with you. Plus 94 Research, formed in 1998. I'm sure some of you have come across it. It's one of South Africa's top 5, if not top 3 research companies. And I'm counting, including the multinationals, your we do polls as well. We have 125 full-time research professionals. And I think about 40 of those are master's graduates. The rest are your honors and your junior degrees. It's a company that, they are about 30 now, sorry, the graduates. The company also employs 400 full-time interviewers, and we have call centers in the Randburg area. We have a reservoir of about 3,000 interviewers nationwide. And our call centers have capacity for more than 300 workstations. That's the logo for Plus 94 Research. Then we have Tirano Auctioneers, formed in 2001. It's apparently South Africa's biggest black-owned auction company currently. We've done a lot of auctions. We currently are the preferred auctioneer for ABSA. That's the logo for Tirano Auctioneers. We sell cars mostly. We sell houses. We actually have an auction next week, Tuesday. You can go shopping. You'll find very good low mileage Mercedes and BMW and all of those. I've spoke to you about Rishaka Funerals, formed in 2008. I formed all of these companies, by the way. We're quite big now, mostly in Guyana, but we're here in Joburg as well. And we're also in Mpumalanga for now. And hopefully we will expand to other areas. Habana Trading, 2011. We currently run about 400 buses in Mpumalanga, 200 ones that I would say we own, but they belong to government. 200 we're running on behalf of subcontractors. Those are the buses that belong to government, which we bought, and we're running on behalf of government. There's 200 of them. It was a concept that I came up with, sold it to the government, they liked it, and they gave us the business. So we've been doing this since 2011, and we're trying to also take it to other provinces. Nyukana Education Center, my frustration, I'm sure you could hear it with poor quality education, and also the fact that kids who are brilliant coming from villages today have to be exceptions to also make a break in life. I found it frustrating, and I found myself with a little bit of money sometime in the past, and I built a school in my hometown in Guyana. There is the school. The best, the people there in the village, they call it the Senten in the village, because the school compares to any other school, even in the suburbs, and the quality is equally the same. I've had a lot of frustrations with this particular investment because it's an area that government should be involved in, and parents don't appreciate, they don't pay fees, and you have to be subsidizing. And so when you also have times when you have downturns in your businesses, it's quite a problem, but we're still running it. Now, building TJH hasn't been easy, mainly because of funding and market challenges, market access challenges. The quote below sums up my attitude about support for building SMMEs in South Africa. This is one of my quotes. My spirit is unbreakable. Rejection spurs me on. You know, you'd be wanting to pay salaries, you are applying for funding from a bank, they reject you on the 25th. And you're coming from the bank, your employees still want to be paid. Those are the things that made me to write things like those. What are the challenges in business? It's managing business growth, funding, business management skills, accounting, strategic planning. So these things, particularly for small business, they don't have the luxury of this. Hence, I said earlier that government maybe should also make them available through syndication. Personal initiative, I spoke about this. Entrepreneurs are not necessarily motivated by profit making. Adopt the 20-20-20-20 principles on dividends. The first 60 cents in a rand, I redeploy in the business. 20 cents, I diversify. That's why I ended up with so many businesses. 20 cents, I blow. I just enjoy it for me and for the family. So that 20 cents could be 2 million. I won't even want to know where it has gone. If I've taken 60 cents, put back in the business, 20 cents I've diversified, surely I work hard. I also need to spoil myself, but not in a manner that is showing off. Education, training, mentorship, coaching, incubation, and networking are very important in business. These ones I won't waste a lot of time on. I just put some of the people who started businesses as well across the world for comparison. You know, Sam Walmart, who borrowed 20,000 from his father, and now we know what Walmart is. It's worth 400 or 500 billion per year from that 20,000 in 1949. The Goodyear, Charles Goodyear, you know, this guy never owned his company, and his brother-in-law ended up owning it. You must read his sorry story. He came up with this idea of Goodyear tire, but he never owned the business. Please get his book also and read it. You'll be inspired. Colonel Sanders, we all know about him. We can read all about him here. And then Ray Kroc, my favorite, you can read all about him as well. Bill Gates, everyone knows about Bill Gates, but his story is there as well. My concluding comment, Ntuleng, it's not where you start, it's where you finish that counts. And for me, attitude is the demeanor to continue striving for success, even in the face of adversity. Shakespeare, Julius Caesar says, there's a tide in the affairs of men, which taken at the flood leads to fortune. Omitted, all the voyage of their life is bound in sorrow and in miseries. On such a voyage sea, on such a full sea, are we afloat, and we must take the current when it serves or lose our ventures. That's about opportunity. That's just something that I normally put out when I'm teaching people, that you need to seek knowledge, which if you use those letters on the alphabet, it gives you 96%. And hard work, you're using the letters also, it gives you 98%. But can you see what attitude gives you? Gives you 100%. I didn't make this up. It's what it is in terms of the letters and the words. I also do this one in terms of how much time we waste by procrastinating and also just doing nothing. There's 168 hours in a week, 56 hours sleep, 112 remains. 50 hours work, 62 hours are left. Now, if you divide those 62 hours that are left by 7, you have 8.8 hours. Most people, I tell you, cannot account for those 62 hours. It is better to light a candle of hope than to cast the darkness. That's Peter Branson. Thank you very much.
I think if we're a part of an audience, this would be the part where we clap. So I'll do the clapping for everyone, and I'm sure wherever they are, they're all virtually clapping. And yeah, I'm not gonna add any. Okay, I'll add one thing where I don't want to say anything where yeah, and love so I'll just leave it as is, where someone once said that life does not give you what you deserve, it gives you what you're willing to fight for. And I think from your story, it's literally like a true sentiment of that. There's someone that's saying, I know, doc, like, yeah, just a comment there from someone. Because of I think we've kind of run a bit over time. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that. Thank you so much for, I think the way that you closed off, it was great in the sense that we started off with all the sad and depressing
The heavy stuff, yeah.
Yeah, and then as we close, someone saying that they're very inspired. I think we all, let me speak for myself, actually say that, yeah, I am encouraged where I'm personally, I'm very entrepreneurial, and something that I've always wondered is it possible for me to have a group with like a lot of diversified businesses there? And I've often thought that it's not, but then I can actually see that, okay, it is actually possible to have a group there where I have companies that are just like miles apart from one another. So yeah, thank you so much. I'll hand over right now to Unkosnati to do the vote of thanks.
All right, Doc, thank you very much. I think in your language we say Nakensa. We thank you very much for your inspirational story. Thank you for the lessons that you imparted on us and all the BMF members. And I know everyone enjoyed the story. I was really excited about the story. I know your story from a friend of mine who you've assisted, you know, and helped grow and develop. So I can attest to your spirit of developing young Black talent. I know people who have been developed by you, and you are living testament of what Black leadership should be. So we really appreciate it. And as BMF Gauteng, really appreciate the opportunity you've given us, the time you've given us, and we will engage further and expand on our programs. You've been a very willing participant in our program, and we thank you. And we also thank you for the books you offered to give to our cohort. We thank you very much for that. And the lessons that you've imparted, I mean, I'm blown away. You know, your story has inspired me personally because I've swayed from entrepreneur to intrapreneur while I was thinking of going back. But your story has actually given me hope to go back to my comfort zone, to my place of happiness, which is entrepreneurship, and persevere and take the lessons that I get, whatever stumbling blocks that I've got. Your story has inspired me to continue, and I know it's inspired others who are also here on this call. I'm sure we're all feeling very motivated. You know, it's very rare for us to hear of a Black success story coming from nothing into something and starting a diverse group of companies like you did. You know, you're not just a one-man band who has one company, one tender with the Lamborghini, and that's all. You have a group of companies, you support households. As you said, you get frustrated when month end you can't pay employees' salaries and you go get a loan. You know, that to me speaks of the type of entrepreneur and type of leader you are, that you put your people first and your people's needs first before yours, because that's your passion. Thriving is your passion. So we really are grateful to have you here. We are honored actually to have you here. And thank you for imparting the gems of wisdom, as Ntuleng has said. And hopefully there'll be more of Tirani Mabundas out there post this conversation, which is what we want. This is the change we want to effect from social, political, and economic change from the discussion that we had that has been diverse. So I thank you very much, Doc, and we shall see you very soon. I mean, we've had a great response, and we'll engage further, but thank you very much. I think, and Tuleng.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
No, thanks. Eunice will share the presentation via Dropbox in the next coming days. I'll just need to clean up some of the typos that I noticed as I was presenting. Thank you.
All right, no, not a problem. So no, thank you very much. I think we're looking forward to that, looking forward to going through the thesis. Or if you have the full thesis, please do share also with us.
No, she will share that. We have an electronic version of it. She'll share it with you.
No, thank you very much, sir.
It's 600 pages though.
No, I'm a bookworm. I'm sure most of us are, you know, an inspirational story, which will help. And I've seen questions asking also about how you were, if you were able to implement the theories and all of that. So I think I'd really like to find out more about that through reading it and through further discussions that we can expand on.
No problem. We will do that. We're trying to get to government to see if we can work with them to implement, because it would help the nation. But we're getting blocked by advisors who maybe have their own interests, and we're not even getting to the minister. It's the nature of our country, but we'll keep persevering.
No, definitely, Doc. No, thank you very much, Doc. And I think in Ntuleng, I know you have a last word before we leave.
I do.
A final thank you. Thank you very much, though, Doc. I mean, I think it's 8:15. I really enjoyed this session. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I think also thank you everyone for dialing in. Thank you for engaging as well. I'm glad to see, you know, the messages that are coming in where everyone is saying that they inspired, and let's not just be inspired right now. Let's take this inspiration and just do something with it yield proper fruit. And I love what Unkosnati said, where we hope there'll be more Dr. Mabundas out there. And, you know, if I believe that if I duplicate myself, when I duplicate myself, that duplicate version of me should be way better than me. And I do hope that, you know, we will also see that scenario as well playing out here. And yeah, from my side, it's a wrap, guys. It's a wrap. Thank you so much.
Thank you.